Ohio State versus Minnesota this week. Joe, when you look into this game, what are your thoughts?
Blake, so this game, Ohio State's a 23.5-point favorite last I checked on FanDuel. I get it that Minnesota has a good record. Their one loss coming up against Cal. I get that this game is in prime time, but quite simply, this is going to be a boat race. Now, one of the things that I talked about in our ranking segment, what I want to get from this Ohio State team and what I want to see in this performance. I really would like to see a more established run game. I want to see more touches for Bo Jackson. I think that he is their best option at running back, and I'm glad that we're starting to see an emergence for him. And the way that he was able to contribute against Washington was a breath of fresh air. I think he's better than Donaldson. I think he's better than Peoples. And I hope that wasn't just a 1-week bit that they decided to go with him and get him touches. I'm so impressed by this defense, Blake. They have so much speed. They have so much athleticism. I do not think that Drake Lindsay is going to be able to do very much, especially with the injuries that Minnesota currently has at running back at the current moment. So, Blake, just to be very direct here, this game should be an ass whooping, but there's an opportunity to grow from it and to build on some things that have been a little bit weak for this Ohio State team.
Look, defensively, they're arguably all around the best defense in the country is Ohio State's. Mm-hmm. 8th in the country in pass defense, 27th in the country in run defense. I think that had a lot to do with what happened last week versus Washington. It was still a really good team. They're 8th in total defense, 1st in scoring defense, 4th and 3rd down defense. And they're going up against a Minnesota team and PJ Fleck and the boys that I just don't know if they have the weaponry or the athletes to be able to hang on and score enough points to beat them. If they're going to clip them, which I don't think that they remotely will, if they do, they're going to have to make this one very, very, very ugly. They're going to have to get a lot of turnovers. They're going to have to confuse Julian Sayin and get multiple turnovers to be in this game, much less win it. Joe, I look at this Minnesota team. I specifically look at them running the football. The best, arguably, one of the best things that I think Ohio State does versus the worst thing that Minnesota does offensively. And again, this game, we're talking about this from coming on paper. But then when you turn on the film, and I'm like, dude, they can't really bust a grape up front. They've been that bad. They've been okay throwing the football around, and I know that they've been fine. They've done some good things. They got some decent athletes. But, Joe, when it comes down to it, you're not going to be able to throw your way into a win against this secondary. At least I don't think that you're going to be able to. You got to establish the line of scrimmage. Minnesota's been really good defensively. Guys, they're top 25 in scoring defense. They're 9th in the country in total defense. They've been good. And ironically, Joe, even after Heatherman left, they look a lot of the same from just a schematical standpoint. However, I'm with you. I think this one's going to be a boat race. I want to see Julian Sayin start attacking a little bit more. Start pushing the ball a little bit more downfield. I felt like that he checked down a lot of things versus Washington last week, that maybe he could have pushed the envelope when he had some one-on-one situations. But I don't think people realize how good this Washington team is from a talent standpoint, and they degrade the win. Joe, this one might be a boat race, and I just don't think Minnesota can run the football at all. Joe, they're 87th in the country in rushing, which really would scare me if I'm them going into the game. And you better find ways to extend the run, or this one's going to get ugly.
Yeah, and I think that them not having Darius Taylor and A.J. Turner really available to them has caused a lot of problems for them trying to get the run game going, because they've historically had a really good run game. I think that what's made Minnesota a lot more dangerous this year than it has been in the past, and maybe for the first quarter this game could be a little spicy, is because of Drake Lindsay. Drake Lindsay is the young up-and-coming quarterback that those that are true football watchers that have been watching a lot of the Big Ten play this year know who he is. He's got a lot of flashes. He's going to grow and develop into a premier player for this program. He can do a lot of things despite having some limitations for what's around him offensively. This offensive line has not done a good job of protecting him. They've allowed 7 sacks, and they've gone up against Buffalo, Cal, Northwestern State, and Rutgers. Inversely, you've got guys like Caden Curdy and Caden McDonald who are just getting after opposing offenses. Curdy had 3 sacks against Washington. He's on a historic run to be one of the most productive pass rushers in the history of Ohio State football, which is even more insane to talk about. So, Blake, I think we're going to really get the full force of the speed, the athleticism, the power, everything that goes into this unit for this Ohio State defensively, because as good as Minnesota has looked, they're down a couple of bodies that is hurting them. Maybe, as you talked about there, Coy Parrish and Anthony Smith and the secondary that they have does a solid job of keeping everything in front of them, and they're just not super potent offensively and picking up big chunk gains like we haven't really seen from this Ohio State offense. Maybe that happens, and this is low scoring, but I don't see a way that Ohio State does not win this thing confidently and handedly.
I agree that they're going to win it confidently and handily. I think Minnesota's defense is being a little bit overlooked. They're ninth in the country in total defense. They're one of the top teams in the country in defending the run. And this is the question you brought up earlier about Bo Jackson getting the run game going. Joe, is this run defense for Minnesota legit at all? Because they're fifth in the country in stopping the run. And if they are, and that has been kind of the issue that Ohio State has had, you're 50th. It's the worst thing that you do. From a statistical analysis standpoint, the worst thing Ohio State does is run the football. Okay, so we got that understood. But, man, what are you supposed to make of this Minnesota defense? What are you supposed to make of that they've been pretty clamped down and only allowing 65 yards per game on the ground? How do you make sense of that this early into the season? The first question I'm going to have in this game is if Ohio State's able to control the line of scrimmage and run the football, and I'm not even saying bust long runs, just be moderately effective, then they're really going to control this game. But if this Minnesota defensive line front seven is able to continue to do some of the things that they've done over the last couple of weeks, I think that's where they keep the game close. I do think the biggest thing when I look at this is talent and depth is going to overweigh and overtake Minnesota in the second half, and that's when they start separating. But the real question I ask, look, this Minnesota secondary's been very violent. This front seven's been very violent. PJ has them playing with an attitude. I'm not saying that you're going to lose or it's remotely I'm not even saying it's close. But if what we've seen from Minnesota continues to go on, Joe, this team's not been bad at all.
Damn it. Oh, no, here's the line. Yeah, no, so I was right. 23.5 is the line for this game. I would definitely – I don't know if I would – over at FanDuel. I don't know if I'm going to take Ohio State to cover, but I would consider taking the under 44.5 at minus 115 odds because this feels like an under game. This feels like a 35, 38 – well, then we would hit the over if that happened. But I mean, let's say 28-3, something like that. It feels like one of those games where they kind of just peel back and close it out. I don't think that's going to be.
You talked about the injuries. They're not going to be able to run the ball here. I don't see it whatsoever. All right, let's get moving here. We do have a couple of super chats we need to get to.